New at 5, questions of fairness and injustice continue following the sentencing of Lincoln County teen Hailey Zenk. After a night of partying, she crashed her car, killing 3 of her friends. Families of the teen victims say the 120-day sentence is unfair. Much of this outrage can be traced back to an Alford plea by Zenk, meaning she did not admit to the criminal acts, but accepts punishment. And First Alert 4 Shoshana Stahl has been working and talking with legal experts to look at the plea and the seemingly light punishment here. Shoshana?
Yeah, Corey, I've been talking to family members for hours between last night and this morning. They all express anger and disappointment with that 4-month sentence. They say it's not long enough given the fact 3 kids died and another has life-altering injuries, as well as the pain and suffering for the families of those loved ones since the February 2023 accident. A legal expert tells me, in his opinion, the prosecutor went around some of these things in a very surprising way.
Take her into custody.
19-year-old Hailey Zenk leaving the St. Charles County Courthouse in handcuffs.
I have to balance this. Justice tempered with mercy. However, there has to be an accounting.
As she goes across the street to the county jail to serve 4 months for the crash that killed teens Caden Tyler, Emily McNeese, and Will Flickinger. That crash also left Trevor Bogart with life-altering injuries.
I'm going to suspend the execution of sentence.
That suspended sentence was for 10 years. Zenk now has 5 years of probation. The sentencing assessment report from the Probation and Parole Office rated Zenk as a low risk for reoffending, despite having alcohol and a cocktail of drugs in her system at the time of the accident.
Given what occurred and what the charges were, that is at the low end of sentencing.
Lawyer Peter Joy says the fact the Lincoln County prosecutor didn't make a suggestion to Judge Michael Fagris was surprising.
I'd say this, of the 3 ways it might go, is the least common.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, the decision is the judge and his alone.
Zenk entered an Alford plea in April, meaning she knew there was enough evidence for conviction without admitting guilt. Lincoln County Prosecuting Attorney Mike Wood says normally it's not something they would accept.
But there was at least medical testimony and evidence to establish that there was a good possibility, because of the severity of the crash, that she didn't recall the incident as it occurred.
Joy says prosecutors do not have to accept an Alford plea, but will weigh that compared to how long a trial could take, the resources needed, and the potential for appeals. But if it had gone to trial, would it have changed the outcome?
The trial penalty, which is typically if you contest a matter and you go to trial, a majority of judges basically are more punitive than they would be if you enter a plea, whether it's a plea of guilty or an Alford plea.
And Corey, in some of my conversations with those family members, they say they actually would have preferred if it had gone to trial, not caring about the timeline, but wanting that accountability and that sense of justice that they say an Alford plea just doesn't give them, with her not admitting guilt. That's what they were really looking for in all this, and now are looking at other ways and other actions they can take to try to get that sense of accountability and justice to even try to move on from this.
All right, Shoshana, thank you.
What's up, everybody? This is Mr. 100K, a day with another video with 100K Paralegal Services. Today, we're going to be talking about Hailey Zenk, the young white girl from St. Charles, Missouri, whose reckless actions resulted in the deaths of 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 of her friends. Now, most people getting convicted of 3 counts of involuntary manslaughter would be in prison. So when Hailey Zenk was sentenced to probation for 3 counts of involuntary manslaughter, plus the injuries inflicted upon the other friends of hers that were in the vehicle, a lot of people were shocked. The victims' families were shocked and upset. The general community was upset, wondering how she can get away with such a light sentence. A lot of people reached out to me asking me, why is it that young white women and young white men consistently receive lighter sentences for conduct that is either equal to or much more severe than their Black or Hispanic counterparts engage in, and they're not held accountable? So in this case, like I said, 3 counts of involuntary manslaughter, regardless if you were drunk, if it was intentional or not, most of the time you would be spending a lot of time in prison if you were anybody else. Not in the case of Hailey Zenk. So it was nobody's surprise when just 2, not even 3 months after receiving a 120-day sentence with probation. So she got out of jail, began serving her probation, she was found to be tampering with her electronic device, her alcohol monitor device, and she was found to have somehow came into contact with alcohol. Now, she said it was a cream that she used in her ankle. That may or may not have been the case, but she found herself back in front of the judge, and this is what happened.
Prison sentence follows a series of courtroom outbursts in a high-profile DUI crash case. It involves teenager Hailey Zenk, who was involved in a fatal crash in Lincoln County that killed 3 other teens and seriously injured another. Fox 2's Chris Hayes was in the courtroom in St. Charles County today for the tense moments in that packed courtroom. Chris?
Mandy, people on both sides of this issue had to be warned several times by a judge and bailiffs to keep quiet, with threats at one point that people were about to be kicked out. 19-year-old Hailey Zenk at the center, spared prison time 8 months ago with shock jail time and probation if she abided by conditions of an ankle monitor. 2 reported violations brought her here today. Zenk testified the ankle monitor was loose during the time of one violation and that she'd accidentally used a foot cream containing alcohol during a second violation report. She stood firm under intense cross-examination.
You were not to put any lotions of any kind near that monitoring device. Isn't that true?
Yes, it was my mistake that I thought it was
Your mistake.
completely free of.
I'm sure.
Judge Michael Fagris sentenced her to 7 years in prison.
After you serve your 7 years in prison, you'll have a new term of probation.
As Zenk sobbed in the courtroom, families of the victims embraced, as some of them also cried.
When he said 7 years, I was shocked. I really did not expect it to happen that way.
It finally felt that he was on our side and was looking in the eyes of the souls of the parents that had lost their children.
She had the ultimate second chance, and I'm glad that he recognized that she completely ruined it.
I hope that the victims can go home today and believe that they finally got the justice that they deserved.
Bailiffs took Zenk away immediately to be taken off to prison. Zenk's family did not stay around to talk on camera, but both her mother and her stepdad told me they support her, and they say they know she was not drinking and did not tamper with her ankle monitor. Chris Hayes, Fox 2.
So that's how that turned out. You know, she got a sweetheart deal. The prosecutor, for some reason, didn't even suggest a high sentence. He left it up to the judge, and I have no clue why he would do that. And of course, 2-3 months later, she violates probation, and she's been now sentenced to 7 years in prison. Now, he could have gave her a lot more time than that. She had 3 counts of involuntary manslaughter plus DWI. She could have received a bunch of consecutive sentences. She could have received like 28 years. 28 years had the judge ran all of those sentences consecutively, but he did not. Once you get your probation revoked, the backup sentences for each count can be run consecutive to one another. But she received 7 years, 4 counts, 7 years running concurrent. So she's not in a really bad position. In Missouri, she'll maybe do 25-30% of that sentence. So that's not even going to be a 3-year sentence that she probably ends up doing in the end for the violation of the probation for this case. Right now, she's sent in women's state prison in Vandalia, Missouri, serving out her sentence. And, you know, she just turned 20 about 6 months ago, approximately 6 months ago. And, you know, she'll be home well before she's 25. Well before she's 25. You know, it'll be just a matter of time before we see if she learned her lesson, because she will be on probation when she comes home. She will be on probation. She still has family support. She's out there, you know, hopefully she's getting some help that she needs, learning about accountability and learning about the mistakes that she made and learning from them. So tell me what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys think that she's going to stay out of prison when she come out? Do you think she learned her lesson? Or is she suffering from affluenza, that same stupid case out of Texas where a young man said he suffered from affluenza in a similar situation where he felt like he hadn't been taught right from wrong because he had been, you know, growing up in a place in the suburbs where he hadn't been taught properly by his parents. And I think that was a situation where a kid was driving recklessly or drunk and killed multiple people because with his reckless actions. You know, this is a pervasive problem throughout the United States. Not only are a lot of these young white kids engaging in a lot of violence, a lot of ridiculous crimes, but they're also engaging in a lot of just plain recklessness that result in the loss of a lot of lives throughout the United States. And a lot of times they still don't get the message because they get a slap on the wrist, like this young lady was before she was subsequently sent out to prison. And even 7 years, we have young black men in St. Louis City who have not even killed people from drunk driving or driving reckless. They just injured a young woman with a volleyball player just a few years ago. You know, she was injured from a young man driving recklessly, and he got 18 years in prison. 18 years in prison. The driver of that vehicle got 18 years in prison, and this woman wasn't even killed. But this young lady kills 3 people and injures more, and she got probation. And then when she violated probation, she only gets 7 years in prison. Tell me how justice is equally applied there. It just doesn't make sense. So tell me what you guys think in the comments. This is Mr. 100K a day. Till next time, y'all. Peace.